I often see a story when I begin to think about a story for the first time. I often imagine it might be a guion instead of a novella, or the other way around. I think, oh, this is a book. This sounds like a novel. Or I think this is a screenplay. This is a guion. It's not a novella. And I write a little more. I take some more notes. And very soon I know, oh, this is not a screenplay. This has to be a novel. Or I think this is too small to be a novel. This has to be a movie. That's what I'm thinking of. And so then it goes in a different place in my imagination. In 14 novels, this has not happened before. That for 20 years, this was only a guion. It was not a novel. It was only a screenplay. It was only the story of what happens to Juan Diego and Lupe when they are 14 and 13 years old in Mexico in 1970. It was just that window of time. The movie always began with Brother Pepe hearing about a boy who had taught himself to read Un Niño de la Basura, a kid who worked in the basurero. And he goes to the basurero to see this milagro, this boy who's taught himself to read from books he's stolen from the fire. Of course, the milagro is his sister, is Lupe. But Pepe doesn't know that at first. The story always ended, the film, a scene not in the book, when Pepe and Rivera and Diablo go to the airport in Oaxaca to say goodbye to Juan Diego, who's leaving Mexico for the last time with Senor Eduardo and Flor. That's the end of the movie. If the director and I finally make this movie, the movie won't change. That's the movie. But between 1988 and 1997, it was a story set in India. These were Indian children in an Indian circus. They were Indian orphans in a Jesuit orphanage in Mumbai, not in Oaxaca. There was an American missionary, like Senor Eduardo, who was good-hearted, gay, would fall in love with a transgender woman. Juan Diego was always crippled. He had a different name. He was always crippled, in the Indian version by an elephant who steps on his foot, not a garbage truck. Lupe was always clairvoyant. She could always see the future and read the minds of animals and men. But we couldn't get the film made in India. In 1997, the director and I went for the first time to Oaxaca to look at orphanages, see some Mexican circuses, and we met for the first time these niños de la basura, these children who worked in the basurero, because there are two similarities between circuses in India and circuses in Mexico. Most circuses in India and Mexico have no safety net. Okay? That's one similarity. The other is the children who work in the circus, usually as acrobats or as clowns. The children who work in the circus, of course, come from poor or disadvantaged circumstances, and you could argue that their prospects for a better life in the circus, even if there are dangers, their prospects for a better life in the circus are better than the life they come from. So that's why we moved the story to Mexico. Immediately, this story was better for a couple of obvious reasons. The Catholic Church has been much more successful and is much more a part of Mexican life than the Catholic Church has ever succeeded in India, where it has not one but two or three other serious religions to compete with. So suddenly, in the small city of Oaxaca, there were more Catholical orphanages, more Catholic orphanages, than in the entire big city of Mumbai. And there were these competing virgins, the Soledad Virgin, the Guadalupe Virgin, and of course, the Virgin Mary herself. That was better. Also, the circumstances of these niños de la basura and the access we had to the families of those children. The director and I had many more friends in Mexico who would help us. The process of meeting families and talking to children and being allowed to understand the history of the basurero, when you could burn this, when you could no longer burn that, how long, for how many hours can you burn a fire, all those things. In India, everything was a struggle. In Mexico, we already had a lot of friends between us, the director and me. We made many more. People were much more forthcoming. Oh, you're making a movie. Okay, well, they were less protective than in India. At the circuses, okay, the orphanages were suspicious at first before they trusted us. But I went many times, and the Jesuits were like Jesuits everywhere, suspicious at first, but eventually you get through.